I'm sure you watched the Browns-Steelers game,
Yep.
last Thursday night. What'd you think of that weather? What'd you think of the game?
I love it. It's to me, it's an argument to not get a dome stadium because, you see games like that. And they're
sure.
Great. I mean, I understand why, and they're probably going to get a dome. And I'm not saying that the dome wouldn't be really, really nice. But weather games are always fun.
That was really cool. And after the game, I even tweeted out, I'm like, that was an awesome memory. Now build the dome.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like those are like once in every 5 to 10 year games in that maybe particular city. This was special because I thought it was going to be an inch of snow, a little bit here and there flurries, but it just accumulated and kept going and going. I was like, holy shit, I didn't see this happening. So I went back and looked up 10 of the craziest weather games I found.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any more, let me know. But some of the craziest weather games. So obviously this past November 21st, people were dubbing it the snow globe game up in Cleveland. The Browns win 24-19. So, and that's just a great picture. The Browns and the Steelers. You might hate the Browns. You might hate the Steelers. You might love them, but I don't know. You could be on whatever side of the rivalry, but that's a great uniform game. And in the snow, it just looks like great football. The next one, I don't know if you've ever heard of this one, but I went through 5 different lists I found on the internet, and I just compiled my own list. And these are in no particular order, but the Mud Bowl. This game was actually in the LA Coliseum back in the 70s, and it was the Minnesota Vikings 14 at the LA Rams then at the time 7. But you could just see, and in LA, you're not expecting a ton of weather out there, but that was the next one. There was also another Mud Bowl. I don't know if you remember this game.
I remember this one, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure this game was actually supposed to be played in Miami, and it was moved to Pittsburgh or something. It was moved for some reason, but there was so much rain because of the hurricane that actually ended up tracking up towards the Pittsburgh area as a big storm. And the thing I remember about this game was a ball being punted, and it just like when you're a golfer and it just plugs right in the ground. So I've never seen that before on a football field or since. Another one, and the Steelers, by the way, won that game 3-0. So it was not a pretty game. This one, I remember this as a very little kid. I would think I was 7 years old, but it was on New Year's Eve, 1988. The Chicago Bears defeated the Philadelphia Eagles 20-12. Players could not see past 15 yards. And going back and reading a few articles, the fog actually only lasted for 3 hours. It was so strange. It literally descended upon the field and lasted throughout the game, and then it was gone. So it was just a crazy, crazy moment there. Next one, the Freezer Bowl. This is in Cincinnati, 27-7. The Bengals in the 1981 AFC Championship game. The game actually took place January 10th of 82, but the wind chills were as cold as -59 degrees.
Wasn't there a Raiders Steelers game in Pittsburgh last year or within the last couple of years that was insanely cold?
It was brutal, yes.
Because I remember, my buddy went to that, and he's like, you couldn't even get a beer. He's like, you had a beer, you walked it out, it would freeze.
Yes.
You couldn't drink it.
I think it was either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day.
Yeah,
too.
You're right.
I think it was you're right. It was a year or two ago, and I don't to me. So we mentioned the for the dome reason. This is the total reason. I would have, and you could look, that stadium's full, but I would have zero interest being in a game like that. No,
it's that cool.
Well, and I think even last year, do you remember that Dolphins Chiefs game, the playoff game, where they always show Taylor Swift, but you couldn't even see her because the glass was all frosted through. But then apparently people lost fingers from frostbite just from being at that game. So I bet that person would want a dome.
I went to one game. I went to a Notre Dame game, and I think it was Notre Dame Northwestern. I can't remember. It's maybe 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
And in South Bend, and it was not nearly that good. It was 25. On them, and we went to halftime. We're just going to a bar.
Yeah, it's brutal. It is brutal.
I'm out of here. I'm not sitting here for this.
Absolutely not. No. once it's that cold, it's like, I don't know, it's just miserable. This one was called the Flood Bowl, October 24th, 1998. Warren Moon was actually the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. I would have to really guess who Steve DeBerg, maybe, I don't know, for Kansas City. 1998. It was definitely past the Montana era.
Was that wasn't Rich Gannon in Kansas City?
It might have been Rich Gannon. Yeah. It could have been. But over 4 inches of rain fell, and it was just rushing on the field from the stands. So Kansas City ended up winning 17-6 in that game. This game was just a couple years ago. The Bears in Chicago, they dubbed it the slip and score game. September 11th, 2022. This was actually the opening game of the season. The Bears were actually down 10-0, and Justin Fields just took over, and the Bears end up winning this game 19-10 in that game. So just a deluge of rain the entire game. I remember this game very specifically. Eagles beating the Lions 34-20, December 8th, 2013. But this was called the Blizzard Bowl. And there was I think there was 8 to 10 inches of snow that fell during this game. And but LaShawn McCoy, they used to call him Shady McCoy. He just like absolutely went off in this game. I think he had like 200 yards rushing or something crazy.
Sometimes it's like, sometimes you think with these games, and I'm just from a gambling perspective, you think like, oh yeah, this is crazy weather and it's going to be super low scoring. And that's not always the case. It's usually one or the other. Either they don't score at all, or it's just no defense can stop you because they don't know, they can't like pivot and stop the tackle.
That's a great
score.
That's a great point. Yeah, the gambling aspect is, they actually say a lot of times the offense has an advantage because they know where they're going, where you would think the defense would have an advantage, but not necessarily. So very interesting. I will never forget this game.
Speaking of gambling,
this one, if you had the Raiders, you got absolutely slammed.
I did have the Raiders.
And this was the tuck roll game because Tom Brady fumbled the ball. We all know he fumbled the ball. But they called it that he was tucking it, that he was making a pass, and they called it incomplete. And it was actually I think they were teammates at Michigan, Charles Woodson, that caused the fumble. And but they overruled it, gave it back to the Patriots. Remember Adam Vinatieri? I mean, that guy was unbelievable in the weather. And
I was livid at this game because I had the Raiders +3.
Mm-hmm.
I put a couple $100 on that, which was a really like I didn't bet that much hardly at all back then, and I was like, no, I like the Raiders, they're good, and Brady gets sacked. Oh no, he didn't get it, or he fumbled the ball, not a fumble. Oh, I was so it ended up being, I didn't lose $200, it ended up being a push, but it was like, it cost me $200, but I would have won $200.
Somebody else had else had the Patriots minus or +2.5 or whatever, so or -2.5. Either way, it was there was some
I'm still salty
hijinks in that game. Oh, I bet. Yeah, me too. And I think back then too, it was like I liked John Gruden, I liked the Raiders, and I was just rooting for them. And unfortunately, it didn't go their way. A few more here. This one was known as the Ice Bowl. -13 degrees at kickoff. Dallas at Green Bay, NFC Championship game. Green Bay wins it 21-14. And I mean, if you're watching and you just look at those people, they look like Jack Nicholson in the Shining there when he's frozen at the end of the movie.
I don't feel like any of those people have enough clothes on. He's 13. Like they all look like they all have digits in this one.
And all those people in that picture are 20 years old. Like back then, it's like people in the 60s look like they were like in their 50s.
Well, even in the 80s, I remember when I was going to high school and I graduated in 99, right? And then you see like the pictures of the athletes, whatever, on the wall from like 86 or 87. They were 42. They had like mustaches and stuff. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh my God. The way, and I feel like it's technology. Maybe the cameras are better or something, but yeah, like people just looked a lot older back then.
100%.